leave it up to the Nesivas Shalom to take something like the 9 days and TISHA B'Av and Churban and infuse it with tremendous chizuk and lessons, practical lessons. Chazal say, Shayalim B'Dorshem B'Hilchas HaMoyed, which means that before we come to any kind of a festival, any kind of anything in our calendar, in advance we're supposed to go ahead and think about it. And this includes that we need to think about deeply what is going on in this tkufa, in this event, in this time, and what is the eternal lesson? What is the eternal lesson of everything that we go through? This is a big theme in Nesivas Shalom. He says that we never, ever celebrate anything from the past. And everybody says, what? What do you mean? Everything we're celebrating. Pesach happened thousands of years ago. Shavuos happened thousands of years ago. Hanukkah, Purim, everything. We don't celebrate anything that's only based on the past and has no relevance to us today. And he explains that in the year, there are days of the year that are set up, that Hashem created in this circle. He created certain days that are mesugel, that are set up, pre-set up for salvation. And when we're saved on those days, and we realize that every year those are days for that type of salvation, that's why we celebrate it. So Hanukkah, they waited, and Hanukkah and Purim, they waited till the next Shana Haba, L'Shana Acheres Kavum. Why? He says because they put their ear to the ground, so to speak, to see, was this a chad pa'ami, a one-time miracle? There were many miracles. There was a time that the whole army got destroyed by stones from heaven. We don't celebrate miracles. We don't celebrate zechronos based on the past. And we don't cry over spilled milk. Because if we cried over spilled blood, we'd be crying every day. So on this derech of understanding, we need to understand what is the concept of avelus on a churban, the whole concept of the Yimei Bein HaMetzarim and Tisha B'Av. All the Chagim HaMoed are supposed to be eternal. What is the tafkid of these days to sit and cry about something that happened thousands of years ago? We don't do that. Certainly, it's not what Pashut Pshat is, what it seems to be, that we're crying that we used to have a home and we don't have it anymore. And that's like, what? We all grew up Jewish, right? We all grew up from, ask any from person, why are you crying? We used to have a home and we don't have it anymore. He says, for sure that can't be. Shekein Am Yisrael eina shomer al zechronos shel avra ba'alma im lo shehem kshurim lahoive v'la'asid. We do not just protect sad and bad and terrible memories if they're not bound to the present and to the future. So the first thing we learn is we are not crying over the Churban Beis HaMikdash over a story of 2,000 years ago. It's already a chiddush. So he's going to explain what is the mashmois of avelus on the Beis HaMikdash. What are we really doing when we sit down on Tisha B'Av? Again, we're not crying that we used to have a home and the home burned down. No. We are saying that we are not at peace with the fact that this home was destroyed, and we have a tshuka, we have a desire, libinyanoi, that it should be built. That Klal Yisrael gets together at this time and says, we are not for 1 second okay with the fact that the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. It's not that we're remembering the house burned down 2,000 years ago, we're coming together for our anniversary. No, we've never gotten over it. The same way that the minute after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the day after, the month after, nothing changed. V'tamid heim malim es zechronim alibam. We are constantly thinking about it on our heart. Umishtoikikim, umitzapim. We are mishtoikik. We are desire, yearning, and waiting. Masai yibana Beis HaMikdash. And this is what it says from Mar Nakadosh Mikobrin Zchus Yagan Aleinu. The worst possible thing is when somebody is mashlim with the matziv the way that it is. When a person is in a situation and they make peace with it, they can never grow. Right? What does it say? Dave Ramsey says, change comes when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. If a person in any situation finally is sick and tired of getting sick and tired, they can go on a diet, they can grow in midos, they can change their life. Whatever change needs to happen needs to have such a depth. I'm not happy with life the way that it is. The worst thing is when someone's at peace with their situation, because then they never change. The worst thing is when a Jew is mashlim, that a Jew feels at peace, that it's okay, and we can continue life without a Beis Hamikdash. He says there's nothing worse than that. That for 1 second we shouldn't get together, we shouldn't think that, okay, now we used to have a Beis Hamikdash, it's okay, we can live without it. 3 times a day, we're mavakesh b'tfilah, v'liyushalayim ircha berachmim tashuv. What are we supposed to do when we say those words? It's not lip service. We're supposed to awaken in our heart a tshuka, a desire for the binyan Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. And especially in the Musaf of Shalosh Regalim, Toichem Ratzu V'Shteikikus Ilois L'Binyan Beis Hamikdash. If you look at the words, right, in the Musaf of Yamim of Shalosh Regalim, Avinu Malkeinu Gali Kvoid Malchuscha Aleinu Meheira V'Hoifa Melech Rachman Rachem Aleinu Shuva Aleinu B'Hamoin Rachlach. The whole thing is about shtoikikus, that especially in the Shalosh Regalim, which we realize what would have happened, that those were the 3 times a year that we went up to the Beis Hamikdash, and we're missing it so much, and it brings out such a shtoikikus. And he says, "Hashtoikikus hazois he bibechina shel karbonos." In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, we brought a carbon, we brought an animal, a sacrifice. Now we don't have that. It's our inner desire. That is our sacrifice, our sacrificial lamb, our sacrifices that we have. Our karbonos is our desire, our tshuka. And it says from the Beis Avram, Ki hagaguim ledavar hem yoyse gedolim me'etz etzem hadavar. The yearning for something is even greater than the thing itself. So then we had karbonos. Now we don't have karbonos. But our yearning, if we yearn, and we have a desire to bring karbonos, could even be greater than the actual karbonos. So through these gaguim that we have, especially at this time, that we are yearning, desperately yearning, Hu reishis binyan Beis Hamikdash. That is the beginning of the binyan Beis Hamikdash. Asher nivne mikayach hashtoikikus. It's built from the koyach, the power, the energy of our yearning. She Yisrael mishtoikikim b'galus l'binyan Beis Hamikdash. Through our being in galus and yearning for a Beis Hamikdash, that is the beginning of the building. If we would all not care and move on, there would be no way that it would be rebuilt. So what is rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash? Our yearning for it. We are pulling down the binyan Beis Hamikdash through our desire that we want it and we're not ready to live without it. Kasha Yehudi Shari B'tachlas Hamarirus. When we are dwelling, immersed in our mind, in the tachlis of the bitterness on the fact that the oir elikus that used to be in the Beis Hamikdash is gone. And we feel this tremendous hishtoikikus, Hashem, we want to see the Beis Hamikdash. Harizeh misayeh al binyan Beis Hamikdash. You're helping build the Beis Hamikdash. And especially in these 3 weeks, Bein HaMetzarim, that this is the time that we awaken, every single Jew awakens b'yoser, especially even more, the tshuka for the binyan Beis Hamikdash. Va'al kain, listen to this, therefore, tkufa zu, this, tkufa, how do you say tkufa? This time period, he be'etzem tkufas haschala shel binyan Beis Hamikdash. This is the 3 weeks is the time that we are the most focused and aware and yearning. So this is the time of the year that is the haschala of the binyan Beis Hamikdash. Such a twist. Because we're not just crying, oh, yeah, I don't have it anymore. We're saying, We don't have it anymore. We're not at peace with it. Please give it to us. We need it so desperately. And the yearning is the building. The yearning is creating that we should be Zoicha for the building. So it comes out that this is the time period of the year of starting to be Zoicha to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Again, his words are, Va'alkein, Tkufa zu hi be'etzem tkufas haschala shel binyan Beis HaMikdash. Like, how do you look at these three weeks? We look at it like, oh, this is depressing. He says, no, this is fire. This is amazing. We're now going to focus more than ever on what we're missing, and therefore, we're going to be Zoicha that it should be built. This is the tkufa for the binyan Beis HaMikdash. So it's especially important that we have a mitzvah on our heart, that we're mechuyev always to be mechazek ourselves and to awaken within ourselves the tzipiyah, the tzima'in, the thirst and the yearning, the waiting, the wanting for Bias HaMashiach and binyan Beis HaMikdash, and especially on the highest day of the culmination of this time, which is Tisha B'Av. It starts in the 3 weeks, and then we have the 9 days. The 9 days is not pshat, oh yeah, I can't eat meat. Oh yeah, I have to find the siyum. Oh yeah, I can't shower. It's tightening up the feeling in our hearts that, oh yeah, I don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Oh yeah, I need a Beis HaMikdash. Oh yeah, I want a Beis HaMikdash. And the more intense that it gets, the more that is creating that it will be built, and the highest level of this whole yearning, the highest level of the yearning is Tisha B'Av. V'chol kama sheyehudi magbir es hashtoikikus v'agaguim shaloi, the more that a Jew raises up his internal hishtoikikus and gaguim, his desire and his yearning within himself, harizeh mekarev esku'ulas haklal v'esku'ulas haprat. Nobody can do this for you. It's not even what people see on the outside. It's the whole point of these weeks was that we should get it in our bones to remember that we're missing something that we need. And therefore, we have to work on that inside. And two people could be saying, and one person's gaguim level could be 12, and the other one could be 80. So the whole purpose of this is to raise our entire national gaguim level to the highest possible, and then we'll be zoicha to the Beis HaMikdash. Valderech Maimer HaKosav, like it says, Mizmor LeDavid, B'hiyoysei b'midbar Yehuda. He had a mizmor as a song of David. When he was in Midbar Yehuda, he said, Tzama lecha nafshi, my soul thirsts for you. It's amazing, right? Tzama lecha nafshi, my soul thirsts for you. It's at least important once in our lifetime that we should feel what we're really missing, to get past all the tsaris and problems and busyness, to feel tzama lecha nafshi, my soul is thirsty for you, kama lecha b'sari, my flesh yearns for you. So he says, and Nesivas Shalom says, you know why? Because where was this said? When he wasn't in Yerushalayim, where he was in Midbar Yehuda. Kasha haya David b'Midbar Yehuda, rachok mibeis hamikdash, v'lo haya lo or elakus sheher b'beis hamikdash. When he was far away, Sha'av, he drew, his chiyus came from what? Tzama lecha nafshi, kama lecha b'sari. When you're in the Beis HaMikdash, right, then you have the Beis HaMikdash. But what do you do? Where do you get kaiches from when you're away from the Beis HaMikdash, when you don't have it? You get filled with kaiches and connection from the yearning and the desire, from the thirst. A Yid who lives in the Beis HaMikdash is living with Hashem. A Yid who lives thirsty for the Beis HaMikdash is living with Hashem. He's living connected to Hashem because he's thirsty and he's desiring to be close to Hashem. B'zeh inyan ha'avelus. That's the whole inyan of avelus v'abechiyos shel Yisrael al churban Beis HaMikdash. Again, we have to reframe our minds because we missed the boat. The point of the avelus, of the concept and the crying of why we are not showering and not eating meat and toning down stuff, not listening to music, not making parties, and the crying, what is it? Hishtoikikus v'agaguim. It's focusing our energy and our mindset to have shtoikikus and gaguim, yearning intense internal yearning, legilui hagadol shel ar ha'elikus, to the tremendous revelation of the light of Hashem, sheheir bizman shebeis hamikdash hayekayim, that used to be there when the Beis Hamikdash was kayum. When we had the Beis Hamikdash, we saw miracles. We were like in a different planet. We brought karbonis, we had kehanim, we had leviim. It was like a whole unbelievable way to live our lives. He brings down in a different place such a powerful idea about a king that had a son, and the son was bad, like all these mashalim, right? And the son had to be sent away. And after 10 years, the assistant of the king happens to be lost somewhere. He ends up in some kind of a place. He ends up in a whatever, and he finds the king's son, and he sees this prince, who should be worth billions of dollars. He sees the way he's living in a hovel. He's living in a hut, and there's holes in the wall, and there's dripping in the ceiling. There's water coming down, and you can't believe this is the prince's son. He's talking to him, and he's saying, "Remember me? Yeah, sure. I remember you from the palace. What's doing?" After they finish meeting, so he asks the prince. He says, "I'm going back to your father. Is there anything that I should ask him that you need? Do you need anything? Any message?" So he tells him, "Yeah. Could you please ask him to send me a new pair of socks? My socks are ripped." And the guy burst out crying. He said, "Why didn't you ask him to bring you home? Why don't you ask him to bring you home? Why are you asking what you need while you're in Galus?" And this is really so powerful, because the whole year we ask Hashem for things that we need in Galus. But this is the time of year where we stop asking for what we need in Galus, and we ask, please bring us home. That's the hishtoikikus and the gaguim, that we want this, and that is what builds the Beis Hamikdash. Because of B'shari Avodah l'Rebbeinu Yoina, Rebbeinu Yoina says, Shebe'ez, when the Bayis was bibinyane, when the Beis Hamikdash was there, Ha'is Sham be'chol eis b'chinas ma'im et Har Sinai. Rebbeinu Yoina says it was always like a bechina, a concept of a kind of Har Sinai. B'dargas ha'nevuah u'l'malu mizu. There was open nevuah. V'yesh l'hoisev b'zeh, it says from the Ramach, it says in the pasuk, this is one of my favorite Nesivas Shaloms. It says in the pasuk that when Basia opened up the little baby thing, the basket, the Tevas Moshe, Vatireyu v'hine nar boicha. She sees, and it's a nar boicha. She's a kid is crying. Vatoimer, and she says, Miyaldei ho'ivrim zeh. She sees the cry. She says, "This is a Jewish baby." The Pashup Pshat is maybe there was a ur, maybe she checked for a bris, right? I learned this with some Home Sweet Home guys. They said no, because he was saying, "Oh, is it hot in here? Oh, yeah, my tasty." She's scratching. It's a Jewish baby. He says, so he brings down, the Nesivas Shalom brings down, V'tireu v'hinei nar boicha, and from the nar boicha she says, Miyaldei ivrim zeh, shemibechiyasai, from the crying, hikira shehu Yehudi. She was able to be makar from the cry that it's a Jewish kid. Kirasa sheboicha bechi shel tikva v'loi bechi shel yiyush. She was able to see that this kid is crying a cry of hope and not a cry of despair. A Yiddish cry is never over the past. We never cry over spilled milk. We cry over tikva, over hope, over gagum of what we need, over yearning to see Hashem face to face, to have the Beis Hamikdash back. We don't cry just over what happened in the past. V'kasha Yehudi boicha. When a Jew cries on the Churban Beis Hamikdash, Hari ze bechia shel tikva. It has to be a bechi of tikva, of hope. Shemiroyev gagua v'chukaisav lebeis hamikdash u'boicha. He's crying out of his tremendous yearning for the Beis Hamikdash. Habechia he shel tikva, bechi shel gaguim v'chuka la'asad lavoi v'loyal ha'avar. Totally reframing our attitude towards the 3 weeks and towards the 9 days towards Tisha B'Av. a lot of times we have Yom Tovim that beforehand you just jump in, you have a Yontif. But sometimes you have Yontif that needs 3 weeks. We need preparation because we have to prepare our mindset for that moment, for that day of Tisha B'Av, not to be wasted. The focus is to have gaguim, to have a yearning and a desire and a cry of tikva, of hope, that we're going to get rescued. And that's what it says in the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Mutter lifkois b'Shabbos, kiven shebechiyah shel Yehudi eino itzara la'avar el gaguim v'tikva la'asid. Stamazah, you can't cry on Shabbos, but that's if you're crying over the past. But if you're crying of a bechi, of tikva, of hope, of yearning, I can't wait for Mashiach to come. We can't wait for the Beis HaMikdash to be here. Then you could even cry on Shabbos also. L'or zeh yesh levara inyan. He says, phenomenal. We all know, if you look on Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, you'll see that it's Yud Beis Tzurufei Oisius. Every month has Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's 4, right, times 4 letters, and they're scrambled, and each one has a different pasuk that it applies to. So there's Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hey Vav Kei Yud, Hey Vav Yud, Yud Hey Vav, all of that. There's 12 different ways of scrambling Yud Kei Vav Kei. Combination. Thank you. But the tzir of Chodesh Av is Hey Vav Yud Hey, and it comes from the pasuk Haskesu Shema Yisrael. Listen up. Hayoim Hazeh Niyeso La'am. On this day you became a nation. Shelachayra Harizestir Linyanei Shel Chodesh Av Shebay Nechrav Ha'am. L'chayra, that's the wrong pasuk. What does it have to do with Tisha B'Av? This is not the day we became a nation. This is the day that we were destroyed. Achen ka'amur. But now we can understand, like we said before. Tisha B'Av hu yoim binyan. We are getting the shovels out. This emotional shovels that we're having to build this Beis HaMikdash, which is not built by our hand with brick and mortar. It's going to come down with fire. But the shovel for it is our gaguim. Tisha B'Av is the highest day of the year of building the Beis HaMikdash. The Avelis and the Bechiyah of the crying of Yisrael b'yayim zeh al binyan Beis HaMikdash hu me'olam habinyan. It's coming not from the olam hachurban, it's coming over the olam habinyan. Umidemois elu, from our tears, from these tears of gaguim, from binyan, nivne Beis HaMikdash. We are building the Beis HaMikdash. Umemela dafka, and that's why specifically the tzirufei oisius of Chodesh Av is Hayoim Hazen Nihiyesa La'am. This is the day that we are becoming a nation. Shebay Hoylech v'nivne Am Yisrael Mechadash. Because this is the day, Tisha B'Av is the day that we are beginning to rebuild Klal Yisrael Mechadash. Muvur Nami, now he explains even better. Madi Isat Shetisha B'Av Nikra Mayed. Kara Alai Mayed. Why would you call Tisha B'Av a Mayed? Tisha B'Av is a destruction. The answer is it happens to be true that that's the day of destruction, but we're turning it into a Mayed, a festival, because we are crying with Gaguim that are going to build the Beis HaMikdash. It's a day of binyan. It's Kara Alai Mayed. And in Sefer Ariv Yisrael, it says in the name of the Medrash, Shalei Haya Yoim Mayed Li Yisrael Ki Yoim Shenechra Beis HaMikdash. There was no Mayed. It will never be a Mayid, a festival, like the day the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. What does that mean? You know what it means? Ki yoim zeh, this day of Tisha B'Av, hu yisoid ha-yisoidis lebinyan Beis HaMikdash ulebinyan Am Yisrael. This is the foundation. What's yisoid ha-yisoidis? The foundation of the foundation. This is the kernel. This is the beginning of the binyan Beis HaMikdash and the binyan of Am Yisrael. Ki avelos hayoyim hazeh matzmicha umamshicha es hageula. The crying on this day, the avelos on Tisha B'Av, is forward thinking. It's planting. It's mamshich de geula, and therefore bechiyah al Beis HaMikdash einena bechiyah shel churban. The crying over the Beis HaMikdash is not the crying on the destruction. Ela bechiyah shel binyan. It's a crying of hope, a crying of building. Haboyne umamshicha es binyan Beis HaMikdash ha'asid, that we are now going to build the next Beis HaMikdash. V'al pi zeh mavur ma'diisa b'chazal. And now we could understand what it says in Chazal. I love the way it ties together all these random Chazals. It all makes so much sense now. Shaboy b'yoyim shecharav Beis Hamikdash, on that day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av, Noiled Menachem, which is Mashiach. What is that? Why of all the days of the year, on that day has to be the birth of Mashiach? Why not Simchas Torah? Why not any other day? Why dafka on this day? You know why? Shebechol shana b'tisha b'av la'achar chatzois hayoyim maschil lehisnoitzeis orei shel Mashiach. Because of our gaguim, not the crying that we think it is over the Churban, but our gaguim as a klal, our mass gaguim of yearning for Mashiach to come, that is the impetus that makes Hashem say, okay, let's get it going. And therefore, we need Mashiach. So let Mashiach be born. That's when it happens. What is the connection? Because which is the day? Ask anybody a question. What is the day of the year that we, as a Klal Yisrael, all of us together, have the highest tshuka for the Binyan Beis HaMikdash? Tisha B'Av. That's why we are zoicha on that day. Al yedei atshuka hazois heim matzmichim as keren hayeshua. We should be zoicha to understand this. Now, to me, when I learned this piece of Nesivas Shalom, it totally changes everything about the day. First of all, it's less depressing. Yes, there was a destruction, and we could be depressed about it. We could think about the Holocaust. It's very depressing. But that's not the purpose of the day. The purpose of the day is to recognize what we lost and to spend one day a year, and again, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. It's 3 weeks, right? Then 9 days, and Shavuos Shechalboi, and then that one day that we all say, wow, we're not going to focus on any of our tzaras. We're not going to think about anything else. Because you know what? If we all cry one day about wanting the Beis HaMikdash, all of the other problems go away. A whole year, one person is crying over this tzara, and this one needs refuah, and this one needs yeshua, and this one needs nachas, and this one needs kids, and this one wants less kids, and this one, everybody has their issues, and shalom bayis problems, and then everybody's crying. But we're all crying because we're in galus. But this is a national day of mourning, but I would say it's a national day of begging Hashem, of focusing that we really need the Beis HaMikdash to come. And if we put all of our crying and tears into that, all of our problems are going to get solved. We should be zeicha to see the Yeshua B'kar of Mamish b'meher v'yimeinu. Amen.